Hello, and welcome to my talk titled How to Attract Media Using Competitive Analysis, a guide for indie devs. My name is Logan Williams. I also go by Indie Wolverine. I'm a marketing consultant, and I've been working with indie developers and publishers for the last 5-6 years now. Time's kind of flying by. I'm getting old. You know what? That's enough about me. We're getting on age. Let's just go ahead and get started. I've got a lot of cool stuff to cover. I'm very excited about it, and I want to leave room for questions after this talk, so let's just get into it. So what is competitive analysis? Well, if you were to ask HubSpot, they would give you this description. A competitive analysis is a strategy where you identify major competitors and research their products, sales, and marketing strategies. By doing this, you can create solid business strategies that improve upon your competitors. And now, when you think of that, you think of competitive analysis. If this comes to mind right away, SWOT. If that comes to mind right away and you're kind of groaning and you're like, man, I don't want to work on a spreadsheet that looks kind of like this, then don't worry, because that's not what this discussion, or this talk rather, is going to be about. You see, I'm more about working with purpose. Now, SWOT analysis, if that's something that you're interested in, you want to do, there is a ton of value in doing it, and I'm all for it, if you have a purpose for doing it. You see, competitive analysis, like we just saw in that description with HubSpot, it can help you in a ton of different ways. And the video game market right now is as competitive as it's ever been. There are more games releasing now than ever before, and tomorrow it's just going to go up and up and up, right? That's a good thing in terms of competitive analysis, but that means there's a ton of data out there. And if you're just going through the motions, then the result is not going to be what you're expecting, or it's not going to be ideal, rather. So let's just work with purpose, right? So the purpose of this talk, let's make that purpose market and sell more effectively. Let's focus on that. You know what? In fact, we can probably shorten this down a bit, right? So if we want to isolate the key words here, market and sell, well, one of them's an action and one's a result. So how about we isolate that result and remove that, get that out of there? We want that. We want to sell more effectively, but that being the result, we can influence that by the action. So if we remove that, we're left with this nice, short and sweet purpose for competitive analysis. Market more effectively, right? And if we look at market as a verb, being the action, market is to do things that cause people to know about and want to buy something. And in this case, or in your case, it's games, right? So what are some ways that we can cause people to know about and want to buy our games? Well, you can get influencers, Twitch, YouTube, right? If you get large ones to cover your game, it's a ton of exposure, and ultimately some of that exposure will convert into sales or wish lists or pre-orders, right? That works. Solid. Tried and true. But what's something that's also maybe a little bit more old school, but still works to this day? Well, it's media. IGN, GameSpot, Kotaku, PC Gamer, Destructoid. These sites they speak to a wide audience. And now your game is going to appeal to a target audience, which is going to be a bit smaller, but there will be overlap. These are big gaming media outlets. And so they speak to a big outlet, or they speak to a big audience, rather, and your game, the target market, there will be a little bit of an overlap within their audience. So we want to get covered by them to get exposure to our target audience, that overlap, and then ideally that converts into sales or wish lists, pre-orders, follows, whatever the call to action is. So that's what we're going to focus on today. We're going to focus on media outreach. But again, competitive analysis, it can help you in identifying the best Twitch streamers to reach out to. It can help you in identifying activities. So for example, followers on Steam, that's public information. So if you were trying to identify activities that influence followers, increases in followers within the production of your game, you can absolutely, very quickly, identify key dates surrounding moments in which games had received spikes in followers on their Steam store page. And then you can do some research and identify those moments, and then see if that's something that you may be able to replicate within your production, within the production of your video game. But again, for this talk, we're focusing just on media outreach, and And at the end of this talk, if you want to ask me about other ways to do competitive analysis to improve your overall marketing strategy, by all means, please do it, because there's a lot. So yeah. So we're going to identify media that are most likely to cover our games. So let's go ahead and get started here. So before we can even get through the process, we need to discover the competition, right? There's a lot of competition out there, but we need to identify that competition before we can start to mine them for information and benefit ourselves. So one way to do that is to use a website like Game Data Crunch. And Game Data Crunch is super dope. It's kind of like the Swiss Army knife for game developers, especially when your games are releasing on Steam. So what you can do is use filters. And I like to use certain filters, and we're about to go over those. But if you have your own filters to identify similar games, overlaps in games, throw them in there. The more filters, the better, right? So genre match, that's one that I like to focus on. If one of my clients' games is a JRPG, then I want to look for JRPG games. The idea is, and for this talk, we're about to build a targeted media list to increase our chances of earned coverage from media outlets after we've gone through the process of media outreach, right? So if we're identifying in this example that I just gave, if we're identifying the competition and that genre matches JRPGs, then we want to identify media outlets that covered those similar games being JRPGs, because that means that they're more likely to potentially cover our game. One potential way, one overlap, but we want to find many overlaps in terms of the competition. So genre match is one. Another thing I like to look for is to find games that have released either within the last 12 months, the last year, or they have yet to release. You see, the video game industry moves very fast, and especially in this case where we're trying to build our targeted media list, writers and those that create content at media outlets, they change jobs all the time. They get promotions. They move to development studios, so they're completely out of the media game. It happens all the time. So we want to find earned coverage within the last 12 months or earned coverage for games that have yet to release. So ideally, again, recently in the past 12 months, because that's relevant and up-to-date information for us to document and put into our own media list. Accurate price model, this is a personal thing. I like to identify overlapping games. So if I'm working on a game that is going to be $20, $25, just kind of a premium pay-to-play game, that's all well and good. I'm not going to be looking at similar games that are free-to-play. While there will be an overlap and some audience that do like to play free-to-play games and like to pay-to-play games, I just like to focus on premium paid if I'm working on a premium paid, and then focus on free-to-play if I'm working on a free-to-play game. Visual style, you see it's red, it's bold, it's got exclamation points. Well, there's a reason for that. See, visual style, this is the most important thing. So when gamers, when they're looking, God, I hate using that term, I'm going to say gamers, when potential customers look at games that are similar to yours, or when they're looking for a game to purchase, they're looking immediately at that kind of surface, that kind of surface layer. And what I mean by that is they're looking at the game, the artistic style. They're looking at screenshots and videos, the actual gameplay. So we want to find games that match in genre, that match in price model and release year. But also we want to really, really focus in on those games that look similar to our game, or similar elements. Not like it doesn't have to be an absolute clone or copy, but if there are similar artistic elements to them, let's start to, that you couple that with genre match and these other things here, and you start to really get a nice, grouping of similar games. So going back to Game Data Crunch, we can see here in the screenshot, I went through the process of putting in some filters here. So I'm filtering by games that have already released, that are paid to play, premium paid games, that are released in the year 2020. They're single player with the genre of RPG, and they fit the criteria of being an indie game, at least what Game Data Crunch would label an indie game. I'm not quite sure what that is, whether it's a Steam tag or not, but regardless, I filtered by that. You don't have to if you don't want to. You can skip that one if you want to. But you see this list here. You can export this list and kind of be on your way, but I would recommend that you do not do that because you haven't actually seen what the games look like. That's the most important part. So we're going to put on our gamer goggles, these gunner glasses. I'm not going to make a joke about them because I actually own a pair, but I don't have them here. If I did, I'd put them on, but whatever. I don't have them. But we're going to look at a game page. We're going to look at Hades on Steam. Now, if you're working on a game for console or Stadia or mobile, doesn't matter. We're really just looking at this through the lens of a gamer. So, and this isn't my assumption. This is something that was done. Something that was done by someone, Chris Zukowski. Not someone, Chris Zukowski. He's a marketing consultant and also game developer. Super dope. I believe his website is How to Market a Game. Really great stuff. Dope blog. But one of the things that he did was an exercise where he observed gamers on Steam as they would browse Steam and look for a new game to play. He just sat back, let them kind of go through the process, and he would just observe and not guide them in any way. And many of them went through this process. So when they would go to a game page, when they would land on a game page after doing filtering and sorting and so on and so forth, get to a game page, they immediately, their eyes would go down to the slideshow. They're looking at the slideshow because they've kind of been trained over time with Steam. They've been trained by bad trailers that don't show gameplay right away, that show gameplay like way later in the trailer, or no gameplay at all. And so over time, they've gone to expect that some trailers are just going to suck. So they go right down to screenshots. They're looking for just gameplay. Just show me what the game's going to look like. Show me the user interface. Just show me what I'm going to play. And then if they like that, then they would go back and they would click on a video, whether it's a trailer or gameplay video, and they would scrub through it to see the game in action. And if it's all looking good, if everything's looking good, then the next move would be to look at tags. It's not to qualify the game. It's not to look at tags to reinforce what they're trying to buy. It's to find disqualifiers. They would look at tags. So, for example, if I'm looking for a game, let's say I'm looking for a single-player JRPG. That's the kind of experience that I'm looking for right now. Well, I would look at tags, and if I saw MMO, that's kind of a disqualifier, at least at that moment. So that's what they look for, is a disqualifier in terms of tags. And if everything's checking out here and we're still looking good, they go up. Their eyes would go up. And they're looking at reviews if the game's already available. If it's not, then they just move on up to the short description. You see, at this point, the game's looking great. Screenshots look good. Gameplay looks good. Tags checking out. No disqualifiers. So now let me learn a little bit more about this game. And they would go down, and then they could add the game to a wish list, follow, ignore, or kind of move on in the queue. Now some, obviously scroll down on the store page to learn more about the game. But really that's kind of just the general process of going through, visualizing or observing a game that may be something that a gamer wants to purchase. So when you look at game stores, and it doesn't have to be Steam, it can be any store, when you look at it through that lens, and that top layer of, does this game look in motion and static? Does it look similar in certain ways to our game? And I'm not saying work on clones. I'm just saying games that look like they give a similar kind of experience. If they fit that, then you got a winner. That's a game that we can now further do research on. If not, maybe continue through your list, and if you're having difficulties, then if you think it's close, then add it to your list. It's kind of a judgment call, but really this is the process I recommend you go through. Now, once you've discovered similar games to yours, and you believe that you're ready to kind of start the research process, well, you need to hold your horses. We need to start to document key data. And in competitive analysis, key data, the process of documenting key data, that comes second, right? It's discover first, document second, then research third. And that's kind of the process that I go through with competitive analysis, not just for building a media list, really competitive analysis in general. But for a media list, it's actually kind of easy, because documenting key data, that key data is a media list. If you've already got one, you're already good to go. You can kind of skip this. But if you haven't, you can take a look at what my media list, at least the columns of my media list look like. I like to have the website name, the domain, contact information, multiple email addresses, just in case one isn't valid anymore, and then a contact us URL in case the email addresses, all of them don't work. Some notes and domain authority, because I like to sort by domain authority to find kind of the best or the most popular media outlets and kind of sort it by that. But yeah, that's kind of what it looks like there. Bare bones, right? Now, I've said right a lot. I'm going to do my best to not say that anymore. So, third and final phase, and this is the fun phase, the research phase. What we want to do is isolate key dates. We don't want to just go searching for similar games now and then just grab earned coverage willy-nilly. We want to isolate key dates. And there are two ways to go about this process. One way is to use Steam database. If you're doing research on a game that you've deemed to be a competitor to you, that is really extensive, then Steam database is where you want to go. It's a gold mine of information. Here's what the homepage looks like. So in our example, we're going to search in the search bar in the top left, Spiritfarer. It's a dope indie game. So when you click on the game page, this is what it looks like. And then you see on the left, on the bottom left, you see all those different tabs there. You want to click on Steam charts. And then it'll look like this. This isn't the chart that we want. You want to scroll down. You want to find this chart, the Steam Game Hub follower chart. Now this chart is self-explanatory. This is when the game earned followers along the timeline in which the Steam page was available. So this is cool in identifying key moments where the game earned exposure or participated in an event or did something that resulted in a spike in followers. And there's a correlation between followers and wish lists, and then there's obviously a correlation between wish lists and sales. So as a result, these spikes in followers, it's a potential spike in sales. It's pretty cool, right? So you can see here, I'm pointing out the little spikes. Even if they're tiny, you still want to isolate the dates and take a look and just see what's the deal. What did they do to earn that spike? For this talk, we're going to focus on this one. We'll get back to it in a minute. But you see that REL. On Steam database, the REL stands for release. That's the full release. If the game is in early access and had an early access release, it won't show REL, at least not with my experience. My experience, it doesn't show it at all. It just shows REL for the full launch. And you can zoom in. You see I zoomed in there. And you can do it. This is a great way to isolate those dates to get a better snapshot on when exactly, and this is very helpful for the smaller spikes. You just identify the exact day where the normal follower trend spiked. So, option 2, if you're not looking at games on Steam, I want to include you in this talk, so you're good to go here. We're going to use Google Trends. Just search the game in Google Trends, and then you can put the timeline in there. You can search by country, and you can isolate country and timeline. I'm focusing on the United States, and I with the timeline, I backed it up the past 5 years. So you can see that first bump right there. That's when the game was announced. And so this is cool because you're going to, if you haven't already come across this moment within the production of your game, you will. All games get announced, or at least they should. So we've identified this spike, which is the game announcement, and then we see these other spikes. There's a bunch of these spikes, and these are all worth following. And we're going to focus on the full launch, and you can see it's the big spike here. We're going to focus on that, but really when you're going about this process, you want to look at all the spikes and identify what the heck happened for this game to either earn interest within Google Trends or earn followers on Steam database. What did they do? What's the cool stuff that they did to earn that interest and or followers? We want to do that too. We want to replicate that. So it's time to investigate, right? I said it again. So it's time to investigate. So if you're having trouble identifying the origin of these spikes, it's easy with the REL. You see that's the launch day. But when you're looking at the other spikes, it's not as easy. It's still easy, but it's not as easy. Where I like to go is to the store page, the game store page, or their website, and look at their social links and their forums, and really anywhere that the developer and or publisher is active on the web. And then that's where I like to go, because a lot of the times when cool stuff happens, the developer and or publisher, rightfully so, they like to share it. And that kind of keys us in on what happened. So you can also use Google. If all else fails, Google's there to help you out. So if you're looking for the origin of a spike and you just can't find it, you've gone through the game developer social channels, you've gone through their forums, you've looked at their announcements on Steam, and you see nothing. Nothing adds up to the exact date, and that's what you want to look for, is exact date. If you see something, if there was a spike on Monday, but you see that they made an announcement on Thursday, it's probably not it. You gotta still dig and try to find out the origin of that moment. But more times than not, when you can't find it, it's because it was an event. Whether they participated in Day of the Devs at GDC, or they participated at E3. So they're earning interest. They've earned exposure, but the reason why they've earned that exposure is because of roundup articles on media outlets, or media covered them at an event. So it's not necessarily something that you can grab. I mean, you can, but you can't really, focus on roundup articles. I mean, you can, but really, when we're building our media list, we're not focusing on roundup articles. We're focusing on our own articles. We want to be selfish, and we want to be covered, not necessarily included with all these other games, right? I'll do it again. So we're going back to Steam database. We're looking at the release date. I believe it's August 18th is when, August 18th, 2020 is when Spiritfarer released. So we're going to isolate that date. And you see, both Google Trends and Steam database, they both reflect this date as being a date when things really popped off for that game. So we want to replicate that. So it's research time for that. We've done our investigation. We've isolated dates. Now we're going to research those dates and then pluck the earned coverage and turn that into our media list. So option one, this is the manual way of doing it. Now, this is the way I did it for a long time. Go to Google. Normally starts with Google, right? You search the game. Use tools. There are filters and tools that you can use in Google to get better search results. So click on Tools. I like to click on Anytime. Go down to Custom Range. We just isolated the date. So their launch date was August 18th. That's when we saw that big spike, right? So that date is the date that we want to put into Custom Date Range. We want to focus our results for around that key date. We've isolated that key date. So we're looking at August 17th through the 21st. I like to look at the month, or not the month rather, but the week. You isolate the timeline, and then, bam, you see here, this is the search results. There's the launch trailer at the top, that's to be expected. But if you scroll down, you see there was a review, and there was a review by Polygon. Polygon's a dope site. Maybe we want to be reviewed on Polygon. We think our game is similar to Spiritfarer, and we deserve to be reviewed there. So, let's look at the reviewer. It's Nicole Carpenter. Well, now Nicole Carpenter is a reviewer added to your media list. It's a manual process. You found a site that covered a similar game to yours. You isolated the key date. You did your research. You identified the website Polygon, coverage, earned coverage, and you're documenting the reviewer or the writer or whomever that covered the similar game to yours. And then you document their social media information, just ways to get in touch with them. Here's some free tools. So again, you probably assume here with this manual process, it's going to take a long time. It does, but it's also valuable work. But here's some free tools to help speed that up. Link Clump. This is an extension with Google Chrome. Now, Link Clump, this allows you to mass copy search results and paste them into a spreadsheet. The value with this is that if you're using advanced search queries and tools and other filters within Google, and you're really locking it in, and you're getting a ton of search results, a ton of earned coverage, well, this is great. But now you need to mass copy it, and this is where Link Clump comes in. You mass copy it, and now you're jump starting the process of filling out your media list. Hunter.io, also super dope. Hunter.io is a service where you can go in and it helps you find email addresses. Those that they're nowhere to be found. You can use Hunter.io, and more times than not, it'll help you find the contact information or the email address of the person that you're trying to contact. They have free queries that you can run. I think it's 25 to 50 free that you can run a month. Definitely worth using. And even if you start to pay for each query, I think it's literally pennies on a dollar. Another option is Voila Norbert. I don't have a slide for Voila Norbert, but it's basically the same thing. That's why I didn't include it, because they're the same type of service. But again, it's Voila Norbert. If Hunter.io is not your cup of tea, then Voila Norbert would be the next step for you. Option 2, this is semi-automated. A lot of it is automated, but I put semi in, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So BuzzStream. BuzzStream is awesome. Very cool platform. BuzzStream has a free trial too. It's a 14-day free trial, a full-on free trial. It's not like a restricted deal. You can go in there and create your media list, export it, and then you've got a free media list. But I recommend, they have a lot of services on top of just putting together a media list that help the whole entire process of media outreach. You can do it all within BuzzStream, and I highly recommend it. But if we go into BuzzStream and we're using our free trial, and we search on, you can search on the web, you can search for news results, or you can import existing context. If you have your own media list, which I'm sure 95% of you do, you can import it into BuzzStream just so you have it there as well. But you can see here I searched for Spirit Fair just like I did in Google, and I isolated key dates, those key dates being the launch date. And what you would do is just, you're using all these isolated dates when you saw spikes in interest in Google Trends and spike in followers on Steam Database. Basically these moments when similar games to yours, when they did something within the production cycle of their game that made noise, because in terms of media outreach, we want to make noise. We want people to cover us. So we isolate those key dates and search them. So using BuzzStream, you isolate the key date range. You can search by country and language. This is super valuable if you're trying to just focus on results that are in the language that you're supporting with your game. And then you'll get these results. And the really cool thing about BuzzStream is it does a lot of things automated. Even to the point where a lot of websites, it'll scrape the contact data for you, the contact information for you. The author name, their contact information, their social media contact information. It'll grab a lot of it, a lot of the time. And it also gathers the domain authority, which is something I personally like to sort by. So it gathers all of that for you. So literally within like 30 minutes, you can put together a robust targeted media list based off of search queries of similar games to yours, based off of the isolated dates that dates that you've isolated when they made noise. You isolate those dates, run your search queries, and then you're gathering all of the earned media coverage. They put in a ton of work. All these games put in a ton of work, and you're the one benefiting from it in this process. You're grabbing all of their earned media coverage for your own. And the reason why we're doing this is because I've always been the type of person that wants to make everyone happy. And in marketing, that's especially true. When I'm sending out press releases and pitches for my clients, I want to send it to people that are genuinely interested, that have shown to potentially be genuinely interested in this type of game or my client's type of game. I want them to open up their inbox, see the message I send them, get a little smile on their face, and then and be interested in the game, potentially cover it. I don't want to send an email of a game that's releasing on Nintendo Switch to someone at PC Gamer. That's just a waste of time. They might even throw you in the spam folder. And no one benefits from that process. So doing this, super valuable. We're doing research to build a targeted media list in BuzzStream right here. Allows you to do it super quick. But again, you can do it manually. Either way, it all works. And then so going back a slide, you can see the check mark there. You just click that check mark to approve. So this is where the semi comes into semi-automated, which I like that it's semi-automated. If it was fully automated, you might get kind of a garbage list of media contacts. You go through here and you manually approve the websites that have covered similar games to yours that you want to be covered by yourself. And when you do that, it builds your media list right there. Bam. Website name, domain, discovered contact info. It even has relationship stage. They even have relationship stage, so when you reach out to them, the relationship stage changes, and then when they respond to you, it changes again, it updates, and then when they cover your game, you can document that, yes, they covered my game, and then you can start to build reporting and all sorts of cool stuff, all within the BuzzStream ecosystem. So it's definitely worth perusing to potentially use. I would recommend using it, but if you want to go about this process totally completely free, I totally understand it, and that's where the manual process comes into play, or the free trial with BuzzStream, and then get out before it's over. But either way, it all works. So here you can export it. So you hit all the check marks, you approve all these media contacts, and then you're left with a dope media list, targeted list of contacts that'll be more likely to cover your game than kind of a throw a spaghetti against the wall type of media list. So you can export this list and use it within Google Sheets, Excel, wherever you like to use that type of stuff. So what does the result look like? Bam. Looks kind of like that. It doesn't have my email in every column. I mean, I only put that in there just in case someone within the media they don't want their email address out there for everybody to watch, or everyone that's watching to have it. So I put my stuff in there. You can spam me, do whatever you want. Please don't, actually. But yeah, so you can see. You can get something like this in a matter of like 30 minutes, honestly. It's very fast. Unless you're doing the manual route, which that way you can still tweak it to get it done pretty darn fast. I got to a point where I was able to bust out media lists within a few hours. But if you use something like BuzzStream, you can do it within minutes relative to hours. So that's it. Thank you. That's all I've got. There's my last slide. Please, I know I went a bit fast through here because I had a lot of slides to cover, but if you have any questions, rattle them off at me. Even if they're not necessarily, competitive analysis questions in terms of building a media list, if you're trying to do something else within competitive analysis, throw that question my way and I'll do my best to answer it. But for now, I think this is a good stopping point for this presentation. I look forward to answering your questions. Thank you.
You should start a drinking game, by the way. I mean, each time you say dope, it's like holiday season.
My vocabulary is not super deep, so just got a couple key phrases that I like to pepper in there when something's exciting. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Okay. 1 second, please. Victor,
yeah, no worries.
Наталью. Oh, okay. My bad. I just, I've seen your session both here and in Pine, and it's like one was not enough. Sorry. Okay, so we have some questions, and I want to just a quick reminder to the audience. We have this little competition running with our partner in Bambora Publishing House. So if you ask your questions and it is like the best question of the day, then Bambora will give you one of their books on the history of gaming industry. So that's your last chance for today to get in there, ask your question, and get out with a book in hand.
Sounds awesome.
So yeah, and we have some questions right now. The first one is from Angelina Plotnikova. She's asking, can you share about the steps to identify the target audience for marketing? Maybe there are some free tools for that.
Sure. So with understanding your target audience, the way that I like to look at it for smaller teams that don't have a ton of resources or budget is really, instead of focusing on the target audience, try to focus on the result of identifying the target audience and effectively communicating to them. Meaning, you want to identify your target audience so that when you're communicating effectively to them, they do something that you want them to do. Well, we can just focus on the result there. And that's what this entire talk on competitive analysis was really focused on, was the result. Meaning we want to drive up followers on Steam. We want to drive up wish lists. We want to earn coverage from mass media sites because they speak to, among many people, our target audience. But if you're trying to identify your target audience for advertising purposes and you want to create personas, let's say buyer personas, and you really want to be targeted with your paid advertising, then some things that you can do are, one, look at your own audience. So what I would recommend is, through your PR efforts, start to funnel people to follow you on social media, whether that be Facebook, Twitter, or any social channels that you're particularly active on, because then you can use your reporting. That's a free reporting tool for each social channel to identify demographics, various interests, pages they follow and like, and so on and so forth. So you can really start to create the mold for your persona. But then other things you can do is your mailing list. One thing that I used to do, and I haven't done lately, but is I like to use a tool from Full Contact. I would recommend Googling Full Contact. They had an API for, I think it was called the Person API. And what this allowed you to do is upload your mailing list, and then it would deconstruct that mailing list and give you demographics, social channels that your mailing list use. It would pull a ton of information, psychographics, demographics, just grabbing a ton of info based off of their email address and their email address that's tied to various social accounts that they've signed up for using that email address. But again, it was the Person API within the Full Contact suite. So Google Full Contact, check that out. And that would be another way. So again, really through your PR efforts, you want to funnel, because when you earn coverage from mass media sites, you want that coverage to convert in some way or another. When you get closer to launch, you want that to convert, if you're releasing on Steam, to wish lists, because that's incredibly valuable for your launch. But early on, you can funnel people to follow you on various social channels or sign up for your mailing list. If you have a website, that could be your conversion at the bottom, your call to action to sign up to our mailing list. Whatever that may be, you're trying to convert those that end up finding your game. You want to convert the ones that like your game a lot into being your audience. And that's what you deconstruct and you pull data from to create your buyer personas and start to really, kind of focus in on your advertising efforts, so you're not wasting any advertising money, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Angelina's also sent us a follow-up. By the way, how important is having a website for marketing now, taking into account the dominance of social networks?
So the website, it still has an importance if you link to it and if you share people so if you have a Discord server, making sure that people in the Discord server know that your website exists on your social channels. Having a link in your bio area, so if you're going to create a website, which nowadays it's easy, it's as easy as it's ever been to create a simple website. It takes no time at all to put it together. If you are going to use that website and you're going to update it and you're going to, try to funnel people into a conversion, then you know what I mean? So it's something that's worth doing if you plan on utilizing it. So if you just create a website just to have it and you don't update it with new content and you don't link to it from your social channels and you don't share links to it in your newsletters and through your Discord server, then no one's going to find it. A very small amount of people are going to find it. They might find it organically through search. But aside from that, if you're not linking to it and sharing it, then no one's going to land on that page. And if it's not updated with new content, then it's just kind of a wasted space. But again, it's simple enough to create a website. It takes no time at all to create one. So I would recommend put one together. Because again, organic search, when people are searching for your game, sure, the store pages are gonna dominate. And media articles from like IGN, GameSpot, the media sites that have high domain authority, they might outrank you. But your website will rank high enough, probably on the first page, so it will earn traffic, a baseline of traffic. And again, if you share links to it from your own properties, you'll earn enough. You'll earn enough traffic to make it worth it. And another thing to consider is that with your website, you control everything on that site. You control all the content that's on it. You control what people see and to some extent what they do based off of call to actions on the site. So in that sense, there is value to a website. I would recommend to do it, again, just because it's simple enough to put together. But if you're going to do it, have a reasoning to do it, not just to check off on a list of to-dos to check it off. Have purpose, whether it be putting a call to action on there, funnel people to do something that you want them to do.
Great. Thank you for such a detailed answer. And the last one, the last question for you for today. You said in great detail about how competitive analysis can help with identifying what's what do projects with the same features do to get traction and get attention. But can this tool help if you try to promote some unique features for your project, maybe something that not a lot of projects try to feature? Can this tool be useful for that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, so what we're trying to do is just find overlap and similarities. Sure, you might have something, unique. I will say it's probably going to be rare that you're the outlier of outliers. There are just too many games releasing now. You're probably not working on something that is 100% unique across the board. You're going to have overlap in some way. Is your game 2D? Is it 3D? There's going to be overlap. And that's what you're trying to find, because that overlap is what's going to allow you to identify earned coverage, meaning those are media sites and content creators. So what we focused on was media, but you can also identify content creators on YouTube and Twitch that cover those types of games. So, whether it's a mix of genre or artistic style, find the overlaps. It's, when you can push your unique value, whatever is unique about your game, that's fine to push that. But you also want to identify those overlaps, because people that play, if you're working on, for example, like a racing game, a racing simulator, but it's also a JRPG somehow, that's kind of unique. But you would focus on JRPG because it's a very specific type of game in terms of the elements that you expect from a JRPG, and you want to get your unique take on that genre in front of people that enjoy the foundational elements of that genre, whether that be a YouTuber or a Twitch streamer or a reviewer at IGN. You want to find those that like the overlap of your game, even if you have something special and unique, that you're bringing to the table. And that's awesome that you're doing that. But again, we're just trying to increase our chances of replicating the success of those that have released their games before us, because it's low-hanging fruit. It doesn't take a lot of time to do this process. So we're just trying to, from all avenues, whether it's media, influencers, social, across the board, we're just trying to increase our chances of earned coverage and increase our chances or increase our conversion rate from that earned coverage, so that we earn as many new followers, new wish lists, new customers at the end of the day, so that you can continue to make games and be financially successful.
Great. Thank you for your answers and for your great talk. It was a real pleasure to have you here at DevGAMM.
Yeah, this is awesome.